Good evening and welcome to the 2021 Celebration of Courage. This event is our annual opportunity to reflect and celebrate the year's victories, and what a year it has been. The pandemic has had a profound impact on so many of us, and Ascend Justice clients are among those who have experienced some of the most serious effects. Our clients, most of whom are women of color, live in communities that have been disproportionately impacted by disease and mortality, and their employment in sectors like hospitality and healthcare have been particularly vulnerable to pandemic-related cuts. The less visible impact of the pandemic, however, has been on their families. There have been sharp increases in domestic violence and daunting new challenges for families who are involved in the child welfare system. These challenges make Ascend Justice's work even more crucial. We are so proud of the Ascend Justice staff for their relentless commitment. It has never been more apparent than this year. Without a single IT employee, they adapted to remote work and created a hotline that has served more than 525 clients in crisis who otherwise would not have had access to legal services. They have responded to staggering increases in demand for many types of legal services, and client support coordinators have connected clients to unemployment benefits, emergency housing, and cash assistance. In addition to an impressive record of client services, Ascend Justice continues to lead and to innovate. With 2021 Champion of Justice State Representative Maurice West, Ascend Justice has taken a lead role in a statewide effort to bring fatality review teams to Illinois. These interdisciplinary efforts are a crucial way to learn in the aftermath of a tragedy of a domestic violence fatality or near fatality. And one of the best ways we can honor people lost to domestic violence by creating more support and better systems to save lives in the future. We have also launched a project to bring civil legal services to incarcerated survivors of gender-based violence. Nearly everyone living in women's prisons have experienced gender-based violence, and far too many may continue to experience threats, abuse, and harassment while they are incarcerated. We are partnering with the Women's Justice Institute to bring these survivors the legal services they need to stay connected to their children and feel safer, more independent, and prepared to thrive when they rejoin the community. You'll hear more later tonight about both of these initiatives. You'll also hear from members of the Ascend Justice staff, some of our clients, and this year's Champion of Justice honorees. Of course, we are also so excited to host a conversation and reading with poet Natasha Trethewey as she discusses her recent memoir, Memorial Drive. We hope that these presentations and conversations will inspire and challenge you. If you support our mission, I hope you will consider making a donation during the event. Just text Ascend Justice to 76278. Our goal tonight is to raise $20,000, which will help us continue to be there for clients like Israel, who you will hear from later in the program. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the celebration.
At the very beginning of the pandemic, there was so much confusion and, nobody knew what to do. I was so anxious going into remote work.
Right at the start, you noticed how difficult it was to, lose this opportunity to build relationships with our clients who are dealing with so many traumatic, experiences and situations that face-to-face conversation is really important in building our relationship with our clients.
It was a very difficult position to be in for clients to be so scared and clients to be dealing with all this upheaval in their own lives and then asking us, what's going to happen with my case?
It was very challenging for me because I had just started Ascend Justice for my position in January. So between adapting with the Ascend Justice and my coworkers and learning the system, then we broke, and then we had to adapt to a new system.
The biggest challenge for me was childcare because I have a 3-year-old son who was 2 at the beginning of the pandemic. It was just kind of all at once trying to figure out how this was going to work.
I have a 3-year-old and I felt, so bad at first, being like, I'm so sorry, my child is talking in the background, or I'm sorry, he just dropped something. Everybody was always like, oh no, I completely get it. And it just kind of became this conversation piece that we could have, oh, how old's your son?
We had one time when the daycare, at a parent had COVID. And so basically for 2 weeks, it was like, okay, well now he's your coworker. I love him, but he's not very helpful in my work.
I do have 2 kids. Dealing with both at the same time as working, it has been the challenge.
All of the elements of COVID really made for a perfect storm of circumstances. I was worried, our clients wouldn't be able to make contact with us because either their abuser is at home or they don't have the ability to access, other indirect safety resources, such as going to a friend's house to seek assistance.
Some of my clients who I've been representing under VESA got laid off and had lost their jobs. And I was concerned about their, economic independence. I was concerned about them paying their bills. At least one of my clients who I know of had COVID. And so I was definitely concerned about her health and her safety.
I did have a client who reached back out to me. She said, I learned from working with you that I can say something when I'm not being treated the way I deserve. And it really hit me because I don't know that she would have been able to say that at the point at which I started working with her.
Everybody on the team has just remained so focused and dedicated to the clients.
I'm very much looking forward to just seeing all my coworkers in person, meeting with clients face to face, just reuniting with everyone. I think will be really nice.
Having an adult conversation and being able to be in the office, being more productive, like I said, one-on-one. So I think it will be very nice to just go back.
I mean, I think it's just so nice to have a dedicated space to work, I'm looking forward to not working next to a pile of laundry and, having to do dishes in between phone calls and stuff. It's just nice to have a dedicated place to work and see some of my coworkers and have that camaraderie.
I think we have such a great supportive team and we're all friends and I miss them. I miss everybody.
My name is Sarah Galoon. I'm the Director of Extended Services and the lead family defense attorney at Ascend Justice. I am so pleased to be able to present the law firm of McDermott, Will & Emery with the 2021 Champion of Justice Award. McDermott has consistently and generously demonstrated a strong commitment to pro bono work and access to justice for marginalized communities. And in the past year, they have also played a critical role supporting Ascend Justice as we have adapted our workplace in response to the pandemic and as we plan to return to more in-person work. I have had the pleasure of personally working with many talented and dedicated pro bono attorneys from McDermott on over a dozen cases since 2014. McDermott was always a key supporter of what was previously the Family Defense Center, and since we merged in 2019 to become Ascend Justice, that support has continued to flourish. Over the years, McDermott pro bono attorneys have successfully represented and cleared the names of numerous parents facing false allegations of abuse or neglect, including survivors of domestic violence unfairly blamed for the violence of their abusers, a single mother dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety, and numerous mothers, fathers, and a grandmother facing baseless child neglect allegations, despite the lack of any risk of harm or actual harm to a child. These efforts have eliminated barriers to family reunification, employment, and financial independence that our clients were otherwise facing. McDermott's pro bono partnership has allowed us to greatly expand our reach in terms of the families we can serve. One of McDermott's pro bono clients is an unbelievably inspiring and resilient mother and domestic violence survivor named Selena. At one point in her case, when victory seemed out of reach, Selena told me that she was tremendously grateful simply to have a team of people who told her story from her perspective and advocated for her for what felt like the first time, and that meant the world to her. That team of people was made up of pro bono attorneys from McDermott, Will & Emery. Since that case eventually resolved in her favor, Selena has gone on to become a trained advocate for other women experiencing domestic and sexual violence, and has actually been invited by the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services to train its new investigators on those topics. Her journey is a wonderful example of McDermott's impact. Thank you so much to all of the pro bono attorneys from McDermott who have taken on these cases over the years. We are so grateful. I'm so pleased to present this award to Michael Boykins, the managing partner of McDermott, Will and Emery Chicago office. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Michael Boykins, the Chicago office managing partner of McDermott, Will and Emery. On behalf of the entire firm, I'm very pleased to accept the Champion of Justice Award. McDermott strongly believes in the mission and values of Ascend Justice, helping individuals and families achieve safety and stability even when they are at their most vulnerable. Much like McDermott, Ascend Justice takes a holistic approach to its work, using its team of attorneys and pro bono partners like McDermott to address a range of legal needs facing their clients. As we all know, gender-based violence impacts an individual's entire life and can require a wide array of legal services to address those issues. We are particularly proud of our work with Ascend Justice's Family Defense Legal Services team. For example, we are currently representing a mother, a survivor of domestic violence, who DCFS indicated for negligence because her boyfriend violently and physically assaulted her, but then told the police that our client was the aggressor. Our McDermott team, consisting of Sophia Gray, Marissa Young, and Lisa Lozelle, is working hard to clear our client's good name, restore her reputation, and ensure that she does not face any barriers to employment in the future. I provide this example because it shows why Ascend Justice's work is so important. Without Ascend Justice, our client would face a daunting challenge to reverse the finding by DCFS. While McDermott is honored to be recognized as a champion of justice, I think everyone can agree that the passionate team members at Ascend Justice are the true champions of justice. Again, we're delighted to be recognized by Ascend Justice, and we look forward to continuing to partner with the organization and assisting its talented staff and providing their amazing services for years to come.
I'm Kristen Tanina. I work as a peer support specialist for Christ Hospital. I just support people who are overcoming trauma or addiction and try to give them access to resources and share my story with them as well. I got married and I got pregnant with Samia. It wasn't until she was about 9 months old with the breakdown of my marriage, and I experienced domestic violence. It started when I was about 6 weeks pregnant. Prior to that, there was definitely some control issues and, verbal abuse. It got very physical one night, and I decided to go and stay in the shelter. And that was a very difficult experience, and I didn't feel like I could care for Samia there, and I didn't feel at that time that I was strong enough. So I ended up working with Ascend Justice and explaining what was going on. They seemed confident right away that they could help me, and they really gave me so much hope. And it's really a big part of why I hung on and why I continued to fight, because I had these amazing lawyers, backing me up. Even though they knew my history with addiction, they knew my history with mental health and self-harm and different things like that, there was never any judgment, and there was never any, they never made me feel like I wasn't capable of being a loving mother because I had a traumatic past. I felt like I finally had someone standing up for me and representing me in a way that honored my story and that recognized me as a mother. The lawyers at Ascend Justice were able to prove that, and this judge agreed with them, and my indication was overturned. If it wasn't for them in the position that they were in, to represent me on that, I don't think a judge would have heard me at all. I wouldn't have left my husband if it wasn't for Ascend Justice, or I wouldn't have stayed away. I would have went back so that I could be with my kid, because I would have had no hope that I could fight the state again. I would have had no hope that I could do that fight again. I would have went back to him, and I could have lost my life, and my kid could have been raised in an abusive household because I would have had no choice if I wanted to be near her. It's absolutely hopeless without an organization like this.
My name is Angelica Gonzalez Lopez. I'm the Director of Extended Services at Ascend Justice. I am so pleased to be able to present the Pro Bono Network with the 2021 Champion of Justice Award. The Pro Bono Network has represented numerous immigration clients in their applications for U visas. Our U visa clients require extra time and consideration, especially when it comes to establishing trust. The Pro Bono Network attorneys have handled their clients with the utmost care and attention, building a strong confidence in their representation. I have been so impressed with how the Pro Bono Network attorneys go above and beyond for our clients. They have shown great empathy and dedication to our clients' legal and social service needs. They take pride in their work and truly care about the welfare of our clients. We are so grateful to the support the Pro Bono Network has generously provided us over the last few years. Without you, we could not serve all our clients' needs. I am so pleased to present the 2021 Champions of Justice Award to the Pro Bono Network.
I'm Linda Rio, and I have the privilege of being the Executive Director of Pro Bono Network. We are so honored to be receiving a Champion of Justice Award, and especially from an agency that we have so much respect for. The work that Ascend Justice does has always been important, but even more critical in the last 3 years, and we've gotten to partner with Ascend Justice over the last 3 years to be a piece of that important work. So on behalf of all of our staff, all of our volunteers, our board, and everyone that we work with, thank you so much for this honor, and especially thank you on behalf of all the clients that we've been privileged to serve by partnering with all of you.
My name is Sheila Pont, and I'm the Director of Programming at Pro Bono Network, and we have been so fortunate to work with Ascend Justice since 2012. First on their Order of Protection project, and since 2019, helping them complete and file U visa immigration paperwork for their undocumented clients. As an agency that was started and established by women, Pro Bono Network has felt so importantly that we wanted to work with women, specifically with survivors of gender-based violence. So this work we do with Ascend is so important to us. The clients that we have at Ascend are women who are survivors of years of physical, emotional, and mental abuse. They are also women who sometimes have had to learn that their children are also victims of these abusers. And because these women are undocumented, these are women who were told time and time again by their abusers that if they left, that they would be deported. But these brave women did not give up because they knew that there was a better life for them and for their children. And so they went to Ascend and they asked for help. And we at Pro Bono Network have been so lucky to work with Ascend and these women to not only make them free from their abusers and not only give them a path towards immigration, but most importantly, we have been able with Ascend to give them hope. Hope for a safer future and hope for a better life for their children. We are so thankful for everything that Ascend does and feel so lucky to be able to work with you.
My name is Hina Musabji, and I'm the Director of Development at Pro Bono Network. I have personally had the privilege of being a volunteer attorney on a U visa immigration case in our partnership with Ascend. When I first met the client to get the process started, she was absolutely forlorn. Her life had been and still was a tough one. She grew up in a violent household. She was then trafficked into the US, had experienced varying forms of gender-based abuse in the relationships and the circumstances she found herself in. She was even a victim to a racially motivated crime. And despite all of this, she managed to keep standing. As she went through the process of preparing the U visa and getting it ready to file, she became hopeful, recognizing that she deserved something good in her life. At our final meeting, just before we submitted the completed petition to Ascend Justice for filing, she told us she was ready to take back control in her life. And it was wonderful to see that transformation. Pro Bono Network and its volunteers are committed to helping immigrant survivors and all survivors of gender-based violence. We are so grateful for our partnership with Ascend Justice and that it has helped reach many clients. We look forward to a future of continued collaboration for many, many years to come to help those in need. Thank you for selecting Pro Bono Network as one of Ascend Justice's 2021 Champions of Justice.
Mi nombre es Israel Álvarez Landa, tengo 9 años aquí en Chicago. Al principio todo fue muy bien. Cuando nos conocimos, una alumna lo llevó a mi clase, pero así estuvimos como un año aproximadamente con una bonita relación, salíamos y todo, y ya después fue donde empezaron a cambiar las cosas, se empezaron a turnar las cosas mal. Él empezaba a ser diferente, bien celoso. No se me podía acercar ni un hombre, no se me podía acercar ni una persona. Después fue un poco más complicado porque él ya empezaba a agredirme, me gritaba, me faltaba el respeto. Y ya fue cuando yo le dije que se fuera y de la casa. Él llega, empezó a forzar la puerta, a tocar. Fue un acoso tras acoso y situación tan difícil. Yo la verdad ya estaba perdiendo el conocimiento, yo andaba mal emocionalmente y mentalmente. Pedí ayuda a muchas organizaciones en mi área y ninguna me apoyó. Yo le doy gracias a Dios porque yo ya lo veía como mi última esperanza. Eran todos los que me negaban y yo ya estaba desesperado. Era un momento de desesperación cuando llegó a Ascend Justice y dijo, yo llevo tu caso y todo estaba bien, la verdad. Yo me sentí seguro y eso yo creo que mentalmente me fue ayudando mucho también a mí para no sentirme como agobiado, ¿no? Con no sentirme realmente estaba mal, ¿no? Fue un alivio muy grande para mí porque me sentí protegido, me sentí que no estaba solo. Es sumamente importante trabajar en unidad, en apoyo, de crear una comunidad y sobre todo a los más necesitados. Pienso seguir luchando por seguir apoyando a más personas. Yo pienso que Dios me puso porque tengo que hacer una misión, pero estoy muy agradecido con toda la gente que me ha dado esa oportunidad.
Hello, my name is Sarah Block. I am an attorney at Ascend Justice who oversees our legislative and systemic advocacy work. This past legislative session, we wrote and marshaled through a bill that will bring a domestic violence fatality review initiative to our state. A partner in this effort and a lead sponsor of our bill is Representative Maurice West. Today, I'm honored to present Representative Maurice West with the 2021 Champion of Justice Award. In addition to being a new father to his little girl and a musician and composer, Representative Maurice West is serving his second term as a representative of the 67th District, which covers the Rockford area. I first spoke with Representative West late last winter to discuss a domestic violence fatality review bill that he had filed. Representative West listens. Immediately, Representative West was open to my concerns over the specifics of the bill. Representative West connects. He then put me in touch with constituents of his who supported the bill. Representative West cares. Together, we formed a working group of stakeholders across Illinois to examine domestic violence fatality review and to determine the best approach for our state. Representative West invests. Every other week for nearly a year, Representative West was present for our meetings, learning with us, sharing ideas, strategizing in partnership all along the way. Representative West is honorable. At every opportunity, Representative West remained committed to the goal of bringing domestic violence fatality review to Illinois, but equally importantly, he steadfastly brought forward our voices, the voices of the domestic violence advocacy community and survivors to Springfield. Representative West is responsive. Garnering fellow chief co-sponsors and co-sponsors for the bill has resulted in bipartisan and bicameral and so far unanimous support for the bill. Representative West is effective. Representative West has demonstrated his commitment to meeting the needs of families and communities experiencing domestic violence through his work with us. And in his day-to-day work in his district and in the halls of the state capitol, he has demonstrated his utmost commitment to strengthening families and communities through education, mental and physical health, economic investment, access to basic needs, racial justice, and so much more in order that living among safety and opportunity is a reality for everyone. Representative West, thank you for your commitment to our shared work. The people of Illinois and your district will experience enhanced well-being and access to justice because of you. I very much look forward to seeing our work together come to fruition and to many more opportunities of working together. Now, I am honored to present the 2021 Champion of Justice Award to Representative Maurice West.
Hey everyone, I'm State Representative Maurice West from the 67th District, which is primarily in Rockford, Illinois. I am so honored to be here to accept your award as a Champion of Justice. And I'm really excited to be a part of this celebration of courage for the year of 2021. I'm honored. I really am. But I have to say, the working group that I worked with in regards to House Bill 3161, Senate Bill 685, mirror bills, the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team, the working group that I worked with was phenomenal. And since I'm here with Ascend Justice, I have to say that Sarah Block, you are a true leader. And I thank you for your leadership when it comes to getting this in the finish line. I'm just a chauffeur. Yes, I'm the state representative, but you bring a bill to me and I drive it home, right? And I work with advocates to make it to the finish line. You give me the language, I take it there, right? And that's my job. But Sarah, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here today. And I want to make sure that the whole team of Ascend Justice and everyone else who's here knows that Sarah is a powerhouse. And I thank you for your friendship. But I also thank you and everyone else who's on the working group for helping me to really make this a passion. Domestic violence, advocating for domestic violence. It started with it being the passion of the city that I represent, Rockford. They gave me the bill and I did my job, chauffeured it, right? But now I'm driving it because I feel that it's necessary. I'm making it the top priority for myself. I'm committed to this. I'm not saying that I wasn't before, but I have a passion for it now. And it's because of you all, Ascend Justice, and all the work that you do. We wouldn't be here today without you. We wouldn't, there's survivors out there who would not have had the resources that they needed if it wasn't for the likes of you. So if I may say, thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm getting this award, but all the thanks, all the praise goes to you all for the work that you do. Thank you. I'm honored to have worked with you. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. Whatever you need from me, you know where to find me. And again, Sarah, thank you so much. to all of you and to every other awardee, a recipient of the Champion of Justice Award. Congratulations. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
My name is Alexis Mansfield. I am the new senior attorney of the Incarcerated Survivors Program at Ascend Justice. My new role is to help build a legal program to provide civil legal services to survivors of gender-based violence who are impacted by the criminal legal system. Almost all people inside of women's prisons are survivors of gender-based violence. We have an epidemic of parental incarceration for our children in Illinois. Over 186,000 children in Illinois have experienced parental incarceration. And so it's really important that people who are incarcerated get those services because abuse is happening even while incarcerated. Our goal with the Incarcerated Survivors Project is to offer holistic civil legal services to incarcerated survivors. It became really clear that the perfect home for this program was at Ascend Justice, and we will be accessing that team to ensure that people have the things that they need while incarcerated, as well as upon release. We are setting people up for success. Without programs like the Incarcerated Survivors Project, people have no real way to access justice. They are in a position where even if they want to properly file something or respond to something or get information about what their rights are, they don't have a way to do that. I think Ascend Justice is leading the way in extending services to incarcerated survivors. The survivors I've worked with inside are some of the most amazing people you could ever meet. And I've seen how services have helped them to show those strengths and resiliencies. You can keep families together. I've already seen the huge impact that it can make in people's lives. It's important for organizations like Ascend Justice to exist because we have to stop the harm that's caused by gender-based violence. I hope that this program will continue to grow until we can meet the needs of everyone who is under the threat of incarceration, ensuring that survivors of gender-based violence have access to all of the legal services that they need. While I hope this program will continue to grow and grow, I hope one day that we'll no longer need it either.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Duval. I'm the Executive Director of Ascend Justice, and I'd like to introduce our speaker for this evening. Natasha Trethewey is a poet who served as the United States Poet Laureate in 2012 and again in 2013. She won the 2007 Pulitzer Prize for Poetry for her collection, Native Guard. She has held appointments at Emory, Duke, Yale, UNC, and she is currently the Board of Trustees Professor of English at Northwestern University. Natasha Trethewey, thank you so much for being with us here today. I was hoping we could start with a reading from your recently published memoir, Memorial Drive.
Yes, thank you. I'd be happy to. This is from the prologue. Nearly 30 years after my mother's death, I went back for the first time to the place she was murdered. I'd not been there since the year I turned 19, when I had to clean out her apartment, disposing of everything I could not or would not carry with me. All the furniture and household items, her clothing, her large collection of records. I kept only a few of her books, a heavy belt made of bullets, and a single plant she had loved, a Dieffenbachia. Throughout my childhood, it had been my responsibility to tend it every week, dusting and misting the upper leaves and snipping the browned lower ones. Be careful when you handle it, my mother warned. A small precaution, seemingly unnecessary, but there is a toxin in the sap of the Dieffenbachia. It oozes from the leaves and the stems where they are cut. Dumb cane, the plant is called, because it can cause a temporary inability to speak. Struck dumb, we say, when fear or shock or astonishment renders us mute. Dumb grief, when the grief is not expressed in uttered words. I could not then grasp the inherent metaphor of the plant, my relationship with my mother, what it would mean that she had made its care my duty while warning me of its danger. When I left Atlanta, vowing never to return, I took with me what I had cultivated all those years, mute avoidance of my past, silence and willed amnesia buried deep in me like a root. Nor could I have anticipated then that anything would ever draw me back to that city, to a geography that held at every turn a reminder of a past I was determined to forget, even as I tried to honor her memory in every way I knew how. Indeed, going back for work after accepting a university faculty position, I thought I could circumvent my former life, going out of my way to avoid it, at least the one place I could not bear to see, until I had to. To get there, I had to drive past landmarks that took me back to 1985, the county courthouse where the trials were held, the train station from which my mother traveled downtown to work, the DeKalb County Police Station at the intersection of Highway 285, the bypass loop around Metro Atlanta, and make my way down Memorial Drive, a major east-west artery once named Fair Street. It originates in the middle of the city, Memorial, and winds east from downtown, ending at Stone Mountain, the nation's largest monument to the Confederacy. A lasting metaphor for the white mind of the South, Stone Mountain rises out of the ground like the head of a submerged giant, the nostalgic dream of Southern heroism and gallantry emblazoned on its brow. In bas-relief, the enormous figures of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis. Not far from its base is the apartment we lived in that last year at the 5400 block of Memorial, number 18D. Though I knew exactly where it was, knew the landmarks leading up to it, I drove right past it first and had to double back to enter the tree-lined front gate. From there, I could see Stone Mountain in the distance, suddenly visible where Memorial crests, as if to remind me what is remembered here and what is not. The last time I was at the apartment complex, the morning after her death, I could see the faded chalk outline of her body on the pavement, the yellow police tape still stuck to the door, the small round hole in the wall beside her bed where a single bullet, a missed shot, had lodged. Nothing in the landscape today bears evidence to any of that, though everything seems to carry the imprint of loss. Row after row of rusted stair rails and window screens mark the shabby buildings, just a decade old when we moved in, and a lighter shade of paint coats the walls as if to hide the dark history beneath it. Standing under the window to what had been my mother's bedroom, I thought of the bullet hole, so small an imprint of the event that changed forever our lives. It would have been repaired soon after, filled and painted over, and I wondered now if the building had settled more with age, the walls shifting. I've seen the depression a once covered nailhead can leave when a house settles, a pock in the drywall, like a wound opening from beneath the surface. That's what's drawn me back, the hidden, covered over, nearly erased. I need now to make sense of our history, to understand the tragic course upon which my mother's life was set and the way my own life was shaped by that legacy.
Thank you. So Memorial Drive, this memoir of your mother's experience of domestic violence and your experience of it was written decades into your career, very successful career as a poet. But your career and your writing is rooted in this trauma, the dual trauma of domestic violence and racism. Could you share a little bit about that?
Growing up in the Deep South, I think it's sort of impossible not to feel the intersection of those things. You know, in one of my books, Native Guard, I actually sort of draw a metaphorical link between this personal domestic violence in my household and the national domestic violence of white supremacy and the Civil War. I was born on Confederate Memorial Day, exactly 100 years to the day the holiday was first celebrated, in order to glorify the lost cause, the attempt to maintain slavery, destroy the nation and institute, even going forward, white supremacy and Black oppression.
And I've heard you say that you wrote Memorial Drive because you saw that your mother was being reduced to a footnote and to a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And in the advocacy community in which we work, we really wrestle with the terms victim and survivor. And can you tell me a little bit about what that means? You know, I've also heard that you've said that your mother was not a victim. So tell me how you feel about those words and those choice of words.
There is the literal way of thinking of it. My mother was murdered. She was a victim of that. But she didn't identify with any kind of victimhood. She was not in herself a victim and did not see herself as that way. She was a person with a great deal of agency and tried to assert as much control over her life and her destiny as was possible.
And maybe this would be a good point if you wouldn't mind reading Imperative for Carrying On in the Aftermath.
Sure, that's a poem that actually deals with a lot of those stereotypes about victims of domestic violence. And it represents what seems like a lifetime now of things that I've heard people say, well-meaning people many times who don't realize how offensive their remarks can be. It's called Imperatives for Carrying On in the Aftermath. Do not hang your head or clench your fists when even your friend, after hearing the story, says, "My mother would never put up with that." Fight the urge to rattle off statistics that, more often, a woman who chooses to leave is then murdered. The 100th time your father says, "But she hated violence. Why would she marry a guy like that?" Don't waste your breath explaining again how abusers wait, are patient, that they don't beat you on the first date, sometimes not even the first few years of a marriage. Keep an impassive face whenever you hear "stand by your man," and let go your rage when you recall those words were advice given your mother. Try to forget the first trial before she was dead, when the charge was only attempted murder. Don't belabor the thinking or the sentence that allowed her ex-husband's release a year later, or the juror who said, "It's a domestic issue. They should work it out themselves." Just breathe when, after you read your poems about grief, a woman asks, "Do you think your mother was weak for men?" Learn to ignore subtext. Imagine a thought cloud above your head, dark and heavy, with the words you cannot say. Let silence rain down. Remember, you were told by your famous professor that you should write about something else, unburden yourself of the death of your mother, and just pour your heart out in the poems. Ask yourself what's in your heart, that reliquary, blood locket, and seed bed, and contend with what it means, the folk saying you learned from a Korean poet in Seoul, that one does not bury the mother's body in the ground, but in the chest, or, like you carry her corpse on your back.
So much of your writing is about the tension between holding things in, to use your words, composing yourself, and then speaking these difficult truths. Has that evolved over the decades? Does it get easier?
It is a matter of both silence and giving voice to things, as you say. And for me, the key is about restraint. And I think that has been a defining characteristic of me as a poet. The density and compression of the language, the silences, and the restraint, I think, allow for a level of emotion seething just beneath the surface that I think is more powerful than were it to result in a kind of rage, even though I may feel that on the inside. And for that poem, I mean, that poem is probably as close to an expression of rage without, restraint that I ever get. And I want to tell you that I wrote it while working on Memorial Drive. Memorial Drive is also full of silences and restraint. But there was a moment that I was writing a part of the book, and I did start to get angry about all those things that people who don't understand say. So I had to turn the sheet over that I was writing prose on and write that poem in order to speak to all of that. And it says something to me about how even as I'm evolved to a point in my own career that I can write prose about this, some of it still comes out in a poem. Some of it still needs the density and compression and control of a poem to be expressed.
I wonder now if you could read from Memorial Drive the chapter that begins accounting.
This is a very short chapter in the book called Accounting. One day I come home from school giddy with news. It is early evening and the four of us take our seats at the kitchen table. Most days during the week, I had practice after school and get home too late for these family dinners. Joel will have already left the house on those nights, so there are blessed stretches of days when I don't see him at all. Tonight, though, I'm too excited to save my news for when I can tell my mother alone, so I blurt it out as soon as we sit down. Not only have I been promoted to editor on the newspaper staff, but also, because of a short story I wrote, I've been invited to join Quill and Scroll, the club responsible for putting out the school literary journal. I can see the delight in my mother's face. She is smiling at me, and I am like a daffodil, lifting my face to the sun. I go on about how much I love the short story reader we are using in English class, how John Updike's A&P is my favorite so far, how I'm planning to write a new story for an upcoming issue. I'm going to be a writer, I announce. You're not going to do any of that, Joel says, shrugging his shoulders. He doesn't even look up from his plate when he says it. My mother is seated to my right, and I see her out of the corner of my eye, a deep furrow between her brows, her jaw clenched so tight she seems to speak with her mouth closed. She will do whatever she wants. I am stunned, my head bent now toward my own plate, afraid to look at her or provoke him further by meeting his eyes across the table. For years, she has held her tongue, encouraging me mostly in private so as to avoid his jealous anger. This moment is different, and I know the cost. She's going to be beaten tonight for that, I think. The tone, even inside my head, resigned, matter of fact. The rest of dinner we eat in silence, Joel glowering, my mother in quiet defiance. I'm stealing glances at her face, thinking of the bruises she'll wear tomorrow, all the hidden places on her body, soft with pain, calculating the price she'll keep paying to save me. I've replayed this scene in my head countless times. She will do whatever she wants. Even now, I hear in my mother's voice her measured restraint, the origins of my own.
In Memorial Drive, you suggest that it would be a comfort to know that your mother had some sort of prescience or awareness of her death, or at least that it is more painful to think that she was hopeful. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
My mother was certainly stoic and brave. But it's a lot easier for me to think of her in that stoicism, making plans for her children's lives without her, as opposed to being a 40-year-old woman thinking that she'd escaped, that she'd made it, that she'd gotten away, she'd gotten a divorce, and that her life was on track for it to be only and exactly what she wanted.
You also you allude to some feelings that you're alive because your mother is not, and that maybe you could have changed by saying something or not saying something, that you could have changed.
Yes, I've sort of lived with that sense that, questioning, wondering if only I had told her early on that I didn't think something was right about him. That maybe early on, if she had tried to get away sooner, she might have gotten away. I also think about the week that we finally did escape, and my mother took my little brother and they went to a shelter where they stayed for about a month. And I went to stay with a friend. I was in high school, of course, and I was in my senior year, and I was a cheerleader. And so we had a football game that weekend, which meant that he could find me. He couldn't find the shelter where my mother was, but he could find me. And he came to the football game that evening. And he came and he sat down right in front of me. And I had tried to avoid looking at him as he made his way down the bleachers, but once he sat right there, I could no longer do that. So I looked at him and I smiled and I waved. I spoke a greeting to him. Later on, he told a psychiatrist that that's the reason he didn't kill me right then and there, that he had come to the football stadium to murder me, to punish my mother. But that greeting changed his mind. And I've often thought that if he had just done it, if I hadn't spoken to him and he'd shot me then and there, he would have been arrested and convicted for my murder. And my mother would be the one still alive.
Have those feelings evolved over the decades?
Intellectually, I know that it wasn't my fault, that there was nothing that I could do or not do. But the feeling of it doesn't go away. My rational mind says that's ridiculous, but the part of me that grieves still wonders.
I want to talk a little bit about healing. And for you, you have such a powerful tool and a talent that you can use for healing. But do you have thoughts about how others can heal? Because knowing that whenever you speak in any group, you're speaking to survivors in the audience. Do you have thoughts about that you could share?
I think the idea of healing is a tricky thing. You're right that as an artist, I have an outlet. I write. I can give voice to the depths of grief that I carry with me. I don't know that it heals it so much as it gives me a way to carry it, to bear it. I think what we all need is a way to carry it. And maybe for some people, if you're an artist, that's a way of carrying. Or if there are other things that are important to you, your friendships or relationships you have with people you care about, who can listen. I think that can be a way of carrying. The thing I think most about is these words from a poem by Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. The wound is still there, it stays. But the idea that it's where the light enters me and what I can do with that light is a way of carrying.
I wonder if you would read now from the end of Memorial Drive.
Be happy to. And this is from the very end of the book. And it starts after I've had a dream. In that moment of waking, I was transformed. The world as I knew it and myself in it were not the same. Through the metaphor of the dream, I had acknowledged the undeniable presence of my deepest wound. Had I read Lorca before hearing my mother's last words in the dream? I doubt that I had. But something of the past was delivering to me again a familiar scene, that early image of my mother's face above me, eclipsing the sun as I looked up at her from beneath the water's surface. Only now it was in the negative, a reversal of light and dark that transformed her face into pure light ringed in darkness, the light all-consuming and piercing. It was delivering something else too, that moment down on the track around the football field after we'd run away, when Joel appeared before me and I smiled, waved, and spoke a greeting to him, the simple gesture that saved my life, traded it for my mother's. Since that first dream, all of my adult life, I have lived with the guilt that I am implicated in my mother's death, or more precisely, that she is dead because I am not. I did not always know this guilt explicitly, though I could feel something akin to it gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. Memory believes before knowing remembers, William Faulkner wrote. Over the years, as I applied the dream again and again to the ongoing narrative of my life, I began to see it as a bookend to my earliest memory of trauma, as if my earliest memory had indeed provided the framework of the dream, bracketing the before and after of my life in relation to my mother's death. Being pulled from the water into her arms was akin to a baptism. I had witnessed something strange, not unlike the visions reported by the faithful that set them on a path of devotion, of meaningfulness, and purpose. My mother, through the wavering lens of water, seemed distant and not fully embodied. An apparition, the dead woman she was to become, but with the light surrounding her, as if she had already undergone her hagiography. In the narrative of my life, which is the look backward rather than forward into the unknown and unstoried future, I emerged from the pool as from a baptismal font, changed, reborn, as if I had been shown what would be my calling even then. This is how the past fits into the narrative of our lives, gives meaning and purpose. Even my mother's death is redeemed in the story of my calling, made meaningful rather than merely senseless. It is the story I tell myself to survive.
Thank you. And thank you, Natasha, for your generosity with your time and your story and your talent. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Margaret. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our celebration of courage. Special events always require a lot of teamwork, and virtual events are no exception. I'd like to thank our board of directors, especially the fundraising committee, our young professionals board, and our staff. And I especially need to thank Fawn O'Brien, whose creativity, perseverance, and general good attitude makes event planning fun. We also need to give a special thanks to our sponsors, especially to Seyfarth, Baker & McKenzie, Denton's, Kirkland, and our presenting sponsor, McDermott Will & Emery. You've heard from our staff, clients Kristen and Israel, and from the brilliant Natasha Trethewey about the impacts of gender-based violence and the child welfare system. Now we'd like to hear from you. If you were inspired, saddened, or moved by their stories, I hope that you'll take action. And one way to do that is to make a donation. You can text Ascend Justice, one word, to 76278 to make a donation, or you can visit our website, www.ascendjustice.org. All of your support will go directly to serving clients like Kristen and Israel and help us make a difference. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at next year's Celebration of Courage in person. Good night.